Today I'm going to be talking about Ainsley's communication device. This is a copy of her current vocabulary that is on the editing software of my computer at home. Her device is actually at school with her today as I record this video. So we're going to be looking at this on the computer. So this vocabulary is what she had been using previously, and there were some things about it that needed enhancement. Additional pages that needed to be added, and in addition we had a lot of redundancy items that were in, for example, things that were also in school, and other pages. Basically there was multiple ways to get to the same thing, but the bigger problem was that it didn't allow for Ainsley to say anything unique. This system is primarily phrase-based. There are buttons that say little things like, I want to see. So that's convenient, it's quick, but, you know, unless you want to say exactly that, if you wanted to say, see what I did, Mommy, that's not really, you know, the same. It has some of the same words, but it's different. So really there's no way to store all of the things that somebody might want to say, and it's just not realistic to think that that's possible. So this kind of a system is great, but it has its limits. And this particular vocabulary started out as a 15 button, and we expanded it. We added an additional row to give us a few more buttons to make it a little bit more complex. So she'd already outgrown the basis of this vocabulary. And I guess I should say, when we talk about vocabularies, what that means is the actual set of buttons that makes up the device. So that's called a vocabulary, just so you understand what I'm talking about when I say that. So this is a vocabulary, this entire set of buttons, the ones that you see here, the ones that you see underneath, all of the symbols that are within it, that is called a vocabulary. So again, this vocabulary is something that we customized. It's based off of the, I believe it's the NovaChat 15. So if I go up here, I can show you some of the provided libraries that come with the communication device. So this is the NovaChat 15. This is what we started out with, and we changed some of the colors over the years, added additional columns and things like that. So we are very familiar with the phrase-based system. We've used it for this particular one for 2.5 to 3 years. Prior to that, we had touch chat on an iPad, so she used that for another year or so, and we've used some other communication devices prior to that. So we're very familiar with this type of a system, and I often, because Ainsley has medical conditions, have to attend school with her and would try to say something with her communication device and would find myself completely, utterly stuck, and it was very frustrating. And I could see that eventually we were going to have to switch vocabularies, but I've been putting it off. But now that she's starting to really use her device more, we think that it's a good time for her to go to a word-based vocabulary that can build sentences. This allows her the flexibility to say basically anything that she wants to, which is really quite powerful for a child who otherwise has no voice. And when you watch Ainsley play with a word-based sentence building vocabulary, you can just see how excited she is about it. So it is the direction that we need to go, and because of that, we're looking at new vocabularies. The NovaChat does come with a variety of different vocabularies that you can choose from, which is great. However, for us, based on Ainsley's needs, we do not have a good vocabulary option. And so I have been in the process of customizing one of the provided vocabularies, which is really what I want to show you. So within the Chat Pair suite, there are various different configurations of buttons here. You've got a 20, 24, 30, 42, 48, 60, and 80, and even more buttons than that, but we're clearly not at that level, so I'm not even going to be looking at those today. The one that is most intriguing is this, these 24 buttons, because the school had given me feedback that perhaps a key guard would be necessary because she was making some wrong selections. I've since figured out that I think they were misinterpreting what was going on. I think she was picking a button that was not the correct button, but not because she couldn't get to the right button, but because she didn't know what the button was. So those are two different issues. So we've since decided that we may not have to go with a configuration of one of the standard key guards. And I've since also found out that you can get a custom key guard from the company. However, it's I think $100, which is kind of a lot of money, but if I need to, I can always do that. So opening up the 24 button, you can see the buttons are rather skinny and long, but you can change the orientation of the device. That requires on the actual device itself, you have to unscrew the amplifier and change the orientation. And that unfortunately does cause some issues. It doesn't work as well in portrait. You have to mount it upside down in order to not cover up the camera, which then means that when the device powers down and back up, it's upside down, and there's just some issues. But if you don't have problems like that, and for some reason, you know, you've got a user who's competent enough to reorient it and get through all that, this is a pretty decent vocabulary, provided that you can read. For someone who can read, you know, these words over here, like me and my and it and you and your, those are very simple words, easily recognizable, and that is probably why the person who built this vocabulary chose not to use symbols. However, there are symbols in the symbol library representing these words, and it would be nice if there was an option to have that in the vocabulary, because for someone who cannot read, having this many words that do not have symbols is a bit problematic. So although the basic structure of this is not too bad, you know, size-wise it's good, the lack of symbols is a problem for us. So we're going to keep looking and see if there's something else. Going back in, there is one with phrases, which is a little bit simpler. It has easy phrases, I want to play. But again, this is phrase-based, and when you have these buttons taken up with phrases, then you're giving up other buttons. It's just structured differently. And regardless, there are still no symbols on these words. So you'd still have to go in and add the symbols to this. And although it sounds easy to add symbols to the pages, the reality is that these vocabularies are quite complex, and they have hundreds of pages. So it's not a small undertaking to add symbols to a vocabulary. But, you know, in some situations, that may be what you have to do. And unfortunately, we have found ourselves to be in that situation. Looking at the next level up, there's a 30 button. Also does not have symbols for those words. And then when you go to the 42, there's a 42 button, which I'll just show you, does not have symbols. And there is, I'm getting myself confused here. It's hard to see over the phone. There's a 42 basic, which is actually quite good, and it has symbols. I'm going to change the orientation. It's nice in this viewer or editor, you can actually change the view. So I'm going to make that landscape so you can actually see it. So this is a good vocabulary. However, unfortunately, when you look at the buttons, and it's probably difficult to discern this from a cell phone video, but these images are actually pretty small, and on a 7-inch device, it's pretty difficult to differentiate one button from another. We did try this at school for a day or two before we ruled this out, because clearly going with a vocabulary that's already done is the best option whenever you can get by with that. So this is what I would have used if we had a larger device. I'm going to show you that if you put this on a 10-inch device, then the buttons are perfectly sized. So 10-inch, see how much bigger that got? How much easier it is to see the symbols? So if we had a 10-inch device, this would be a good vocabulary for us. But with a 7-inch device, which is what we have, we need something a little bit with less buttons, basically. So where that unfortunately has left us is that the 24 vocabularies, the 30, and the 42, none of them work for us. Basically, there's no vocabulary that is in the provided vocabularies that we can use at this point, unless we stick with a phrase-based system, which I've already explained why we aren't doing that. So unfortunately, that leaves me at the point of needing to customize a vocabulary. And so that's what I have started to do. So when you, what you can do is you take one of the vocabularies in here and you make a duplicate of it, and then you can edit it. So you've got a place to start, but if you're making changes, they need to be consistent across every page within the vocabulary. So this is Ainsley's new vocabulary that I have been working on. And I want to show you that I see here I've added symbols to the page. In addition, we have switched it from portrait to landscape, and we did that for a couple of reasons. For one, we had some school pages like her letters and let's see, her calendar time, and let's see, some activities that we do. We have various pages that were in landscape orientation, and by going to a landscape vocabulary, I was able to import those pages into this existing vocabulary. So what I had to do was change each of the pages to make it landscape instead of portrait. I'm going to show you how that's done. So I'm going to turn it on into edit mode, and I'm going to go into the pages. And within here, if you click off to the side, then you can scroll through the pages, which is nice. So you can actually see each of the pages and what the layout is. And you can see I've customized a lot of these already. They are in the landscape orientation, but they initially were in portrait. Now here you can see this one, once we get into the actions, these are in portrait mode still, and they need to be changed. So by going from a 24 button to a 28 button, I was able to add a home button on the pages, which is really quite helpful, because in some situations you end up getting stuck on a page with no way to get out of it. And I'm going to show you that. But first, I'm going to show you how you go about doing the editing. So this is Actions B. I'm going to open it up. Oh, first I need to switch my view back to my 7-inch. So this is the size of device that we have, and I am going to modify this page. So I'm going to the page layout. My configuration is 7 buttons. So I always am putting my home button in the bottom here, and then I can quickly drag and drop the buttons to their new locations. I'm trying to keep them in alphabetical order because that's how these pages are organized. So this is not too bad because, you know, this is a pretty simple page of just verbs that are listed in alphabetical order. It gets more difficult when you are changing, you know, the main vocabulary pages. Now, in addition, I need to create some blank buttons here. Oops, sorry. I'm having a hard time doing this over the phone. What am I doing? Create new button. Oh, yeah, okay. I was not able to see very well. Okay, so unfortunately, it's defaulting to this terrible color. But I've got an empty button now, and what I'm going to do is copy my button style and paste it over here. And then I'm going to copy that button and paste it into the empty spot so that I don't have empty places on my page. Then I'm going to go up and remove those extra rows that I no longer need. Up here you can see that it's going to show you which it's removing, so you see what it looks like before you accept the changes. So yes, that's what I want, and now I've got a fixed page. So you can see this is the process for you know, doing the rearrangement, which doesn't even include adding symbols to buttons that don't have them, but this is one page for a 400 and something page vocabulary. It's, you know, no small undertaking to do this, as I've already said. See all these pages? That's how many pages there are. So, but I also want to show you some of the limitations here. So I'm going to get out of edit mode and go back into the standard vocabulary. Because after seeing that, you probably are wondering, why in the world would I ever take this on? So, I'm going to put it so that you can see it better. Okay, so here is the standard vocabulary. We are not in the customized one. This is simply the vocabulary as it existed. So I'm going to say a sentence here. Will you come with, where's with? It all looks different because I'm used to my buttons and my locations. Me. Okay? So there's a sentence that you can say. It's fine. It's great. Now we're back at the home page, and I'm going to say, you and me are friends. You. Okay, I'm stuck. There's no and not only that, there's no home button. So how do I get back to find the word and? Well, I could press this and then hit clear, and then I can go here. Oh, but that's not in there either. So now here I've got a home button. So on this page they did put one, but for some reason, okay, now I'm stuck again. So you see that not having a home button, you know, it can be problematic. If you are an experienced user and you've already memorized all the locations, you're not going to make so many errors of going to the wrong place because you're going to know where things are. But there are times that you navigate to a page and you get stuck because the word that you want wasn't ever on that page, but you had to get to that page in order to say the word in your sentence that you needed. So a home button is really kind of critical. And the Ainsley School has asked that we have one. So the other reason that we are switching vocabularies is to be able to go from 24 up to 28 and more easily add a home button on each of the pages where it's needed, which is pretty much all the pages. So so that is what I wanted to show you is how in this vocabulary the home button is not there, and in order to add it, you're talking about additional customization. So we need symbols, we need a home button, and ideally a landscape orientation is more ideal because you can also fit more symbols on the display. I have found that since we added that, it's really helped Ainsley to reinforce learning the symbols because it shows them up in the SDB. That's the speech display bar up here. So I'm going to switch back to my vocabulary that I've been working on here for a while. And of course I have to switch the setting to landscape again. So unfortunately in the PC editor you can't actually see the symbols up here. I'm not sure why, but on the actual device it would show the symbols up here above the words.
It was on.
So this is what I've been doing, and if you've heard me complaining lately about spending so many hours over the last 3 weekends programming the device, this is the reason why. So just trying to explain it so that people understand, because I know that to a lot of people it doesn't make a lot of sense, but this is the process that we are undergoing in order to get a vocabulary that works for our daughter. And in the end, I think it will be worth it because she will be able to say anything she wants to say at any time, and hopefully the underlying structure of this vocabulary is good enough that she'll be able to use it for many, many years. So maybe forever. Although forever is a long time. You know, ideally, this is the reason that we're doing it, is that this is a long-term change. And so when she learns it, she'll be learning it hopefully one time. And, you know, if we were to switch to more, some other vocabulary in between. It would just mean having to learn the position of all of these words a second time, which is really not desirable. And it takes a lot of time to learn to memorize all of these buttons. And so that's what we've been up to, and I hope that you've enjoyed my little video. Thanks for watching.